Welcome to the Exodus Companies podcast. My name is Jared. I am the CEO and founder of the Exodus Companies. If I say the phrase playing the long game, what would you think of? Some people might think of a game or a sport. They might think of throwing a ball back and forth for a long time, or maybe having an objective that is further down the road. But what I want to talk to you about today is my personal journey of playing the long game. And I mean this in my business life and also in my personal life. If you don't know, I own a small business, technically multiple small businesses at this point. I am 30 years old, and there's a lot that has gone down in the last 8 years. But throughout those 8 years, many of those years have been extremely painful, extremely trying, and very stressful. There's been many weights that have been on my shoulders over those last 8 years. And there's many times that I have to remind myself that I'm not in this for a short sprint. This is a literal marathon that could potentially take the rest of my life and will take the rest of my entire life. And I'm okay with that. So one of the things that I wanted to encourage you with is when you enter into anything in life, that could be a new hobby, new skill, could be your current occupation. It might be you starting a business, maybe not. But if you enter any of those different journeys, playing the long game, in my opinion, is the only way. And our culture around us is looking for that immediate gratification. And you hear us talking about that very often. And that's because our culture wants us to focus on the next shiny object rather than becoming excellent individually. When we look at culture around us, we recognize that it's broken, but even though we recognize that it's broken, if we're not willing to work on ourselves as individuals, there's no way we can actually have a tangible effect on the culture around us. A recent podcast that I released talked a lot about discipline versus motivation. When we're playing a long game, it requires discipline. If you're not disciplined, there's no way you're going to stick it out for the long haul. Let me just paint an example from my personal journey of me playing a long game. And I want to be clear that whenever I'm using my own examples, I'm not puffing myself up. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. What I believe is that my own journey can help teach you things, maybe save you some headaches, but also at the very least offer you some encouragement, because I know many of you are going to be in very similar situations to myself. At the beginning in 2015, we started my first company, TA Targets, and we released that with this mission to create the best products that we possibly could. What I didn't realize is that through starting that business, I wouldn't pay myself through that business until 2019. Think about that for a second. You start a business in 2015 and you don't pay yourself for potentially 4 to 5 years. Is it worth it? I mean, at the end of the day, people looked at me like I was crazy, and in some ways, maybe I was, because I could have just continued the whole steady job that I hated, but it was a steady paycheck, rather than just throwing the dice and risking it all. But what kind of a life is that? And that's a question you have to answer for yourself. I answered that in one way. I'm willing to play a game for 10 years plus that I know that it might be the 11th year. I might get to that 10th year and it might suck. It might be weighing on me. I might feel like I haven't done what I knew I could do, but I'm going to then go to the 11th year. I'm going to play that long game. And if I go to the 11th year, I know I can go to the 12th year and the 13th and the 14th and the 15th. And I'm going to show up every single day, all the time. I'm going to use the discipline that I'm building to play that long game. What I also didn't realize when I started my business is that we're going to self-fund everything. And that when expenses came up, we're going to put our money into it to build whatever we need to build. When we go to trade shows, we're going to pay for our own fuel, our food, our travel, our housing, all of that stuff. I didn't realize what I was getting into in 2015, but the discipline that I was building and the motivation that I used to help guide that discipline is what ultimately helped refine me to the point where I continued to remind myself that this is a long game. And my personal move in this particular mission of changing culture, of impacting people, of reaching people, is playing that long game. My move is a 10-year plus play. And I would encourage you guys to do the same thing. Don't let culture and society around you tell you that you can just chase instant gratification, that you can chase the next shiny thing, that you can just do whatever feels good. Because ultimately, if you look at the people around you, do they feel good? Do they look good? Can they communicate well? What is their professional life like? And oftentimes we can tell a lot about the health of the person around us by looking at those things. Now, I've said this in other podcasts. I'm not asking you to judge people around you, but I think you do have to define what that long game is, what you're willing to do to win that game, and also what success even looks like. Let's take culture, for example. If we want to change culture, what are the metrics that we're going to use to prove that we are changing culture the way that we want to? It's just something to think about as you are embarking on your own long game. And on this paper that I have in front of me, I did write a couple different things about delayed gratification, playing that long game. I wrote a couple different examples of this. Being a servant leader, that is an example of playing the long game. I talked about this in the discipline versus motivation podcast episode, where I used the example of a servant leader, somebody who is willing to sacrifice for themselves now and invest in other people so that later on they do gain a reward for that sacrifice. But it's not just in our professional career that we do this. It's in our personal life. It's in our public life. This is far more than just what you do to earn money. This is a calling, a mission for your life. I also wrote down rewarding others first and putting their needs above your own. From a father's standpoint, I have children. Naturally, I often put their needs above my own. And in many ways, I'm sure most of you listening to this podcast can know or remember experiences where you've put the needs of others before your own. And that's not a weird manipulative thing that we do. It's just that we understand that when we play the long game, we are often going to put other people ahead of ourselves. Being okay holding myself back potentially and propelling other people forward. Think about that as well as you're investing in those around you. Maybe you're taking on some extra responsibility or some extra weight or stress on your shoulders so that you can help others succeed as well. And that could be in a cultural aspect where we are pouring into other people around us, investing in our neighbors, investing in our community. Maybe that's serving your community and you're taking an extra weight on your shoulders so that you can help other people thrive. Delayed gratification is intentional, not accidental. I'm going to say that one more time. Delayed gratification, playing the long game, is not an accident. If we just look at our own human nature, naturally we are going to flock to things that are immediate, something that makes us feel good in that moment. That's where we're going to focus our attention if all we are doing is focusing on human nature. Delayed gratification, playing the long game, is intentional. Those who are willing to delay a reward right now, in turn, can see a return later, and that is discipline. Now, again, I don't want to act like I'm a crystal ball, mythological reader, future teller. I'm not saying that by doing certain things, you're guaranteed that in X, Y, Z amount of time, something good is going to happen to you. We all know that life can throw us left hooks, right hooks at any given moment. We are always going to face trials in our life. There's no guarantee that you follow a certain formula and you're going to reap this exponential reward. But I think it would be foolish for us to say that if you wake up every single day with purpose and you pursue something that means something to you and you pursue it with a vicious intensity, that at the end of that, you wouldn't see some kind of positive change. In my own journey, oftentimes that meant that I was just disciplined and focused enough to wake up and do what I needed to do in that day. And oftentimes I thought I was going to head in one direction and I headed in a totally different one. But the difference is playing that long game and being disciplined allowed me to continue taking steps forward. So delayed gratification is a continued lesson that I just continue to remind myself all the time. When I get frustrated, when I feel like I just want to throw the towel in, when I feel like I want to quit, I just remind myself that every single time I take a step forward, it is a step forward for my own life, for my future goals, for the things that I want to do, for the impact I want to have on our community and our culture. And when I remind myself that it's a long game that I'm playing, and that's okay, I remind myself that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to not have the best content all the time. It's okay not to have maybe the perfect message. Maybe it's okay that I don't do the perfect thing all the time. But the fact that I'm willing to wake up every single day and do this no matter how much it sucks puts me in a better position and at a higher chance to see the success that I'd like to see eventually down the road. So as you guys are navigating through your life, I would encourage you, be willing to play the long game, focus on that discipline, hone in those skills, and ultimately that will position you in a better way to affect change in your life and the lives of those around you. If you guys liked what you saw in this episode, please consider sharing it with your friends and family members, and also consider leaving a rating and review on the hosting platform for which you are listening to this podcast. If you want to go one step further and show us even more support, consider going over to exoduscompanies.com. On that homepage, you're going to see all the brands that we own. You can check out the links, all the other information that we have there. And if you want to represent the values that we speak of every single episode on this podcast, you can rock our apparel. Check it all out on exoduscompanies.com. I have on right now the Destined to Move hoodie. It shows my diesel swapped Jeep Cherokee. If you're into that kind of stuff, this is a fantastic hoodie just to show people that you are part of this movement. I also have a couple other t-shirts over here that I figured I would show you guys who are watching on YouTube. We have our logo lockup tee over here. This is the Q4 drop of 2022, and it has many of our statements that we believe to be true. We've got revival, truth, vision, purpose, and underneath it says Exodus from culture to build community. It's a great way to share our values with people as you interact around you every single day. And then I have one of the t-shirts over here, which is again the Destined to Move t-shirt. This is one of my personal favorites because it is obviously my Jeep, but it also signifies physical movement and exploration of people. So guys, there's a lot more apparel over on our website, exoduscompanies.com. It is a fantastic way for you to show some support for us, but also speak truth into culture.